Hey, this is Roger. I'm back, and we're gonna take a look at the code that was included in this configuration. Do a bit of a code walkthrough based upon some of the things that I've highlighted here in the documentation. So first up is the bootstrap script for VM MS SQL. So let's go have a look at that. I don't think I need my terminal open right now, so we'll close that down to give us a little bit more screen real estate. So this is pretty straightforward. You've seen these bootstrap files before. Remember, their primary purpose is to create the terraform.tfvars file, which drives all the default settings for the variables that aren't pre-configured. But we also do a variety of different pre-configuration in bootstrap, things that we can't do in Terraform. So, here we're setting up some defaults. We are pulling some runtime defaults from VNet Shared. So all of these values we inherit from the state file in VNet Shared using these Terraform output commands. Okay, so this dependent configuration requires that VNet Shared be deployed in advance, of course. And then we also need some values from VNet app, in particular, just one value, the subnets, which get defined in VNet app. Because remember, this SQL Server VM gets dropped into the database subnet, which was created in the VNet app configuration. We get our user input and we test to make sure that a value was provided. And if it wasn't, we put the default value back in there. We make sure that your ARM client secret environment variable was set up. Then we're going to upload some deployment scripts to Azure Storage. So there's two PowerShell scripts that get uploaded here. So just create a couple URIs for those. And we need to get the key for the storage account so that we can upload these files securely. So we go get that key from Key Vault, and then we upload all the .ps1 files into our storage container. And once they're in that storage container, we pull them out of there using the custom script extension. That's how we actually push scripts onto the VM using the custom script extension. The source location from where the script comes from is our container that was created in VNet Shared. Okay, now we also have to do some bootstrapping of our automation account. So that's a PowerShell script. So let's go take a look at that. That's the configure automation.ps1 script. We'll just take a look at the main routine there for this particular script. All right, so we connect up to Azure. We set our default subscription. We connect to our automation account, and then we import the networking DSC configuration, desired state configuration module, as well as the custom, the SQL Server DSC module for configuring SQL Server. So after we import those two modules, we import a DSC configuration called MS SQL VM config.ps1, and we compile it. So let's go have a look at that configuration. Here it is, MS SQL VM config.ps1. So this particular desired state configuration uses these modules. That's the standard one, PSDSC resources. This is the one we use to domain join. And then these three are the ones that are unique to this particular configuration: networking DSC, SQL Server DSC, and Active Directory DSC. Now, we had already previously imported Active Directory DSC, so our bootstrapper didn't import that one. We just assume that it's there. We pull in some variables from Azure Automation. So we get the name of our domain. We get our credentials for both the local and the domain admin. And we also get the short credential for the domain admin, because the different credential styles are used in different places. Okay, so the configuration itself, the first thing we do is we run a script called enable SA. And so when you do these SQL script queries, there's a get, a test, and a set. Okay, so you have to write queries for each. So get just basically, or it gets the value of is disabled for the SA account. So that's how we retrieve whether or not the SA account is disabled. Test, test to see whether or not the SA account is enabled. And then set actually enables the SA account. So with these SQL script query resources, you need to, write all three: the get query, the test query, and the set query. And then we grab, we can reference a variable in there using this variable clause. And so the variable that we want to get is the password for the local admin credential. And we run that query using the local admin credential. So this is interesting, that this actually gets run before the machine is domain joined. So before the machine is domain joined, we enable the SA account. Okay. So the next thing we do is we domain join the machine, because you can see here that we have a dependency on that SQL script query called enable SA. So we do not, try to domain join the machine until we're sure that the SA account is enabled. Okay. And the reason why we do that is we need to be able to connect using both domain credentials and using SQL Server Auth using the SA account. Okay, next thing we do, after we domain join, we basically go and open up port 1433 in the Windows firewall on that particular Windows Server machine. So that'll enable connections, inbound connections to SQL Server over port 1433. Next, after the machine's been domain joined, we're going to add a domain admin login. And so basically, we add a login for bootstrap admin at mysandbox.local. And then we add that login to the sysadmin role using the SQL role command here. The Windows feature that we're going to add is the Active Directory PowerShell administrative tools. And that enables us to go and configure a special group in Active Directory called database servers. So if the group doesn't exist, it'll get created. And then it adds this machine to that database services group. So if we go look at JumpWin1 and we pull up Active Directory, users and computers, close down SQL. SQL Management Studio so we can see a little bit better. I believe under users, we will see a database servers security group. And if we click on the members, we can see MS SQL Win1 has been added to that security group. So that facilitates the use of group policy or things like that you want to target all your database server deployments with. Okay. So that's pretty cool. So that is the desired state configuration that we upload into Azure Automation and then we compile. And then once it's compiled, we can register our new SQL Server VM and apply that configuration. Well, let's go back to Bootstrap. So that was a lot having to do with the configuration of Azure Automation desired state configuration. So we walk through all that code. And then we just wrap up by writing out the terraform.tfvars file, right? Which we've seen before. Okay, that gets written out by Bootstrap. We ran that in the getting started section. So that's Bootstrap. So let's see what else the documentation covers. Okay, I covered most of this. Configure Bootstrap, blah, blah, blah. It gets output variables from VNet Shared and VNet App. It uploads some scripts. It configures Azure Automation desired state configuration and adds a couple of modules and compiles that MSSQL vmconfig.ps1 configuration. So once that's compiled, those are all prerequisites to provisioning the SQL Server VM. All right, what else?